Welcome to Garden Chatter, where we connect gardeners, bloggers, and experts so we can all grow and learn together. I'm super excited about tonight. We've got a great guest on. And Bren, do you want to go ahead and introduce our guest and let others know how they can join the conversation here?
Sure, I'm really excited tonight, Adam. We have a garden guru rock star for sure. We have Rochelle Greayer, and she is the author of Pith and Vigor. And also, I want to note to everyone that if you're joining us on the Google Hangout, be sure to click up on the right-hand side of the screen where you're viewing our presentation tonight. And if you click the little gray Q&A box that'll come down, go ahead and say hi to us. And you can also communicate and talk with us on Twitter using the hashtag Garden Chatter. Adam?
All right. Well, welcome, Rochelle. Super excited to have you here. I was wondering if you could maybe just tell a little bit about Pith and Vigor and what you're up to with that. And also, we're going to have a chance to talk about your book.
Okay. Pith and Vigor, the second issue is actually being mailed this week to subscribers. The first issue came out last fall, and when we launched, the whole publication was started with a crowdfunding campaign that was very successful, and we got a lot of subscribers through that, which was fantastic, and we put together the first issue. It seems very well received, and so issue number 2 is out now. And basically the idea behind it, I mean, our tagline is for people with dirt under their fingernails, but the idea behind it is to eventually, with time and growth, have a series of Pith and Vigors that are localized across the country. So this one, it's kind of a balancing act in that I think it's very appealing to gardeners anywhere, but it does definitely have a distinctive New England sort of feeling, and we kind of focus on gardens that are in this region and some of the artisans. But the idea is that you know, as we grow, we will have versions that will be from other regions, and all of those stories will be available digitally to subscribers online. So kind of a real hybrid newspaper / digital magazine as we grow. So it's exciting, and it's been very well received. So I'm really pleased about that. Pleased that it's everything I thought it could be. So.
Well, that sounds awesome. So I was wondering, is it going to be quarterly?
It's quarterly. So yeah, the next one will come out in May, and then the next one in August, and then the next will be in November. So that's the regular schedule, is February, May, August, November for publication. So at least for now. So I think that's where we're going to sit at the moment. So. There's a regular blog and whatnot that we're always posting to, and we're kind of building on stories and doing things like that online. So trying to kind of, you know, keep things interesting in between publications as well. But yeah,
it's kind of leading up to the next one. So yeah. Is there a kind of a timeline or a plan for when the next local, like where are you going to branch out to? I mean, that sounds like a pretty ambitious and plan to go sort of nationwide in regions. So
it is ambitious, but I'll say this: I've already had the second issue is just being mailed out this week. So really, truly, with only one issue out, I've had inquiries from a few regions in the U.S., the Southwest, the Northwest. And somebody down in the Atlanta region, and also I had somebody who inquired about wanting to have a Pith and Vigor in France. So wow. See where it goes. Yeah. It's a business model thing, though. I guess that's sort of, I feel like you know, we really need to prove the concept, prove the model can work, because part of the model is really to support small businesses that really I don't think, generally, unless there's a strong regional home and garden magazine. But even then, the home and garden magazines are really more home and garden and lifestyle in a different way than truly gardening magazines. There really isn't anything that gives an opportunity to local gardens, local garden centers, local garden artisans, local, the entire community at a price point really as far as advertising that's accessible and is inviting for editorial. I mean, so we've been featuring a lot of very small business sort of people, and that's the goal. Is because I firmly believe that to grow the community, the community isn't just gardeners. It's the people who supply the gardeners and the businesses, and everybody needs to kind of work together and support each other. So
I had a couple of questions from a few of our viewers on Facebook, and so they're trying to understand what we're talking about here. So they can find out about your publication at pithandvigor.com.
Yep.
So what you've done, we're not talking about just a newsletter here. You actually get a printed copy of your publication in snail mail, right?
This is the current.
There it is.
Coming out. Yep.
Awesome.
It's 8 pages. It's beautiful. This is an article about roses, not your mother's roses. Yeah.
Okay.
And I love this.
Beautiful.
This is kind of a comic strip at the back of this issue. It's very cool.
And then, so now, what hardiness zone are you in tonight, Rochelle?
Personally, I was in 5, but then a few years ago they kind of moved me to 6. I'm on this weird borderline. I still think I'm kind of 5-ish, but 5, 6.
So is this publication tailored to mostly the people in your region, or it covers a large area?
It really covers a large area. I think, for example, we did a story this season, or this season, this issue. We did a story about seed libraries. Yes, we featured a seed library here in New England, but we, seed libraries are seed libraries. It kind of go anywhere. Similarly with the roses, we talked about sustainable roses, the ideas behind sustainable roses. That's applicable anywhere. The varieties that we shared specifically, those are perhaps the best for this region, but the story. So we're kind of a little bit of both. The same with, we did a big story about ground covers. Yeah, some of these you might not want to plant if you're in Southern California, but not all. They're pretty good. They're pretty, it's.
There's a lot of varieties that cover a lot of the different hardiness zones when it comes to roses. That's for sure. And I want to say hi to Bill Blevins of Plants Map. Just popped on the Google Hangout. Hey, Bill.
Hi. Yeah. So. Our local artisan, he's here in New England, but, then we did a thing about woofing, which is the working on organic farms, it's like a way to travel. If you're into, if you want to travel, it's a program where you can go on holiday, really, travel, and for, a short day's work on an organic farm or property, then you get room and board, and the rest of the time for free. So anyway, we had somebody who wrote kind of a memoir of her woofing experience, but that happened to be in Northern California. So there is still plenty of variety for lots of people. It's just, I feel like it has New England flavor.
Woofing, like a dog, woof woof?
Yes.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah, it's working. It started out working weekends on organic farms.
Oh, cool.
And it changed over because it started like in the 80s, I think, and then it was a British thing. But then it turned into worldwide opportunities on organic farms. So it's a way to it's kind of like hosteling, but instead of paying for a cheap night, you kind of are working it off on an organic farm.
It's funny because I just heard that word like about a week ago for the first time.
About woofing?
Yeah, woofing. And so I was like, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
Well, I think having Pith and Vigor go national on a local level would be pretty neat, because then you know, small businesses really can't, well, except for in your area, are not going to want to advertise, you know. So if there was local.
Yeah, I mean, we have, there, you know, it's perfectly reasonable, though, for nationwide businesses to advertise in this publication, because we have, well, actually, I don't know exactly where we are at the moment. After the Indiegogo campaign, we had subscribers in 32 countries, or I'm sorry, 32 states, and I think it was 13 countries or something like that. I think it's grown a little bit then, so we have a huge variety of subscribers, but so it still makes sense for a national advertiser to come in. It's just that you know, we're targeting. We're not targeting them. You know, we welcome them, but we're really trying to make the opportunity available for local businesses. So
where are you getting the content? Are you having I haven't looked at an issue. Do you have a variety of different authors, and how is that?
Yeah, I've had people pitch stories, and we've taken some of their ideas, and so usually when they pitch, they are either a writer or know of somebody who could write the story. And then a lot of the stories are my ideas, and then I went out and found an author who could do the story. So like this issue, you know, we have the woofing story. I happen to know somebody who went on a woofing sort of adventure and asked her to write about it. And we did a whole thing on trends in using flowers on cakes, cut flowers on cakes, but kind of put this like grow your own spin on it. And so we partnered with Abby Larson, who is the editor of Style Me Pretty. It's a big wedding website, and asked her to kind of call out sort of trends in cake decorating and florals, and then we kind of tied that in with the grow your own sort of gardening stuff that she didn't have. So, you know, we kind of got creative on. We have a lot of different writers. I think we've had about 10 or 12 people involved in every issue, between writing and maybe more, actually, writing and editing and illustrators. So that's a big element of it, is illustration and kind of cool artwork and that kind of thing. So.
Well, very good. Before we move on, maybe talking about your book, Maggie Tosin, I think is how you pronounce it. Tosin. Sorry if I'm butchering your name, Maggie. She says hi, and then she was wondering, where can advertisers get rate information?
If somebody wants rate information, I believe the media kit is on the website. There's a section down at the bottom right that says advertising. If you go to pithandvigor.com, you should be able to download the media kit. But if you have any trouble, just you can either email me, Rochelle Greayer @gmail.com, or advertising@pithandvigor.com, either one, and we'll get one to you.
Super. Sounds good. Well, thank you. So you have a book out that's fairly recent, and it's Cultivating Garden Style. I was wondering if we could dive into that a little bit. How was the process of writing the book? Or maybe you could just share a little bit. Or when did it get published, and how did that all come together?
Yeah, so the story of this book is I had this idea for this book for a very long time, and I pitched it a few years ago, and books take forever, but I pitched it, and it was about 7 or 8 months later before we finally signed a contract, and then it was another year before I turned in everything, and then it was another year before it came out. But it basically is kind of, as I have worked as a designer for many years, is sort of a book that I always wished existed, and it was based on this other book that I cherish immensely, that isn't a gardening book. It's an interior design book. It was a book put out by the Domino magazine editors called the Domino Book of Style, and I thought was always, I still think it's very useful in, it kind of laid out all these different styles and then kind of broke them down and then interspersed tons of very practical information like how to hang wallpaper or buy a sofa or different things like that. And I always kind of thought, what a great format for building a garden and to talk about garden styles and kind of try and name, I guess, styles that I think we are all kind of doing, different people. I mean, these are, I think there's 23 styles in the book. Each one's its own chapter. And honestly, I think they are all kind of very relevant. They're not just, I mean, I found gardens that are of each style, but I think they're very modern and kind of, you know, we can talk about things like French country style or, you know, English or, you know, Islamic or, you know, there's a million different garden styles that are kind of historic, but I think these are sort of the modern version of many of those. So hopefully I can help people with the book to sort of figure out which style they might be or come up with their own style. And then build, you know, kind of from a basic level start to build up the concept of it.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, because you've done lots of garden designing for years for clients, right?
Yep.
So I was just wondering, do you have any sort of hints? Like, what are some of the questions you ask to get people started in the right direction? Or do you have any sort of, I don't know, guidelines that you use to get people focused in? Or maybe you're...
You know, well, another big reason that I always wanted to have this book, I always wanted to have it just as a designer to sort of inspire myself. But when I was, you know, regularly working with clients, I used to carry around these pictures that I'd cut out of magazines, and I'd mounted them on cardstock, and I just had piles of them, and I would, you know, go to meet a new client, and, you know, as a designer, that's like what you're trying to, first thing you're trying to do is figure out who are these people and what are they about and what do they like and what's their sort of natural style, and you're kind of looking at their house and maybe what they wear and maybe what they drive, or, you know, just kind of getting a read on them so that you can kind of get your head around what will really make them happy. But with this book, it has over 1,000 pictures in it, and I was excited for that because I kind of thought, now this is like, if I had this book, I wouldn't have to carry all those stupid cards anymore. Plus Pinterest, of course, has come along since then. Nobody needs to carry those cards around. Pinterest is wonderful for gathering inspiration, but now that is exactly what I do. I still kind of talk to people about pictures and sort of, but even more in depth than maybe we once did, because there is such a availability of pictures in something like this book, but also as like Pinterest, is to start building a board with a client, a collaborative board, just to kind of, whatever it is that appeals to them, start throwing it on the board. And of course there might be a million things that don't go together at all, but, you know, if you kind of throw it all up there, you can start to see a thread that that, you know, as a designer, that's, I think, the job, is to sort of try and figure out where that thread is. But, you know, with this book, I think my goal, at least, is to help people sort of be able to tease out their own thread and do it for themselves.
Sounds good.
Don't give up on the old school scrapbooking. I think that makes you unique. Also, I noticed that you're a graduate of the English Gardening School in London.
Yeah.
Are there any influences from that education in this publication?
Oh, I'm sure there are. What are they? I'm not sure, but I know there are. Yeah, I never really thought of myself as a very, like, English garden designer, but yeah, it was a tremendous education, though. Rosemary Alexander runs a school, and she I mean, is a huge knowledge base of a person, as well as she brought in basically kind of the foremost expert in whatever we were talking about to be the lecturers. So if it was stone, it was, water, or, it just didn't matter. We always had these great lecturers. So I don't know. I don't know what it is that was translated into this book, but I'm sure it's there.
Sure. I'm a big fan of the UK gardening and technology movement that I'm seeing on social media. I mean, they've really got it going. I mean, from the BBC, they're very active on Twitter, and they're great at engaging. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah. The whole scene there is so different. I have to say it, just the memory, because I lived there for 4 years and kind of came into the industry. I had always been a gardener and grew up gardening, but I actually went to college. I was a physics major, and I worked in aerospace for a while, but I always kind of thought maybe I should have been an architect. That was kind of my, like, oh, woulda, shoulda, coulda kind of thing. But it was in England where I kind of made the decision to, leave one industry and go towards another. And a big reason that I was able to do that was because it's such a well-supported industry in that country, and such a, it's so culturally different there, and as far as gardening goes. And, the nice thing about it, you can say Brits are being Brits, and that's all lovely, but I mean, to be honest, I really feel that any person who understands a garden, even at a very, high level, is profoundly affected by that in so many other areas of their lives, in anything from like their politics to all, to their health, to, it's just really, it's such a thing that kind of changes everything. And I just think that more people need to garden. So
I think that's why we're all here, right? Like,
right. Yeah. Honestly though, it's why I write a book. It's why I publish a newspaper. I just want to inspire people to kind of fall in love with it, understand it better, and even if it always makes me laugh when people say, "Oh, but I don't have a green thumb," and I'm like, you don't need to have a green thumb. Just love it. You don't have to even. I don't know. I mean, it's great if you hands dirty, but
So at the end of the month, you're going to be down in Atlanta for the Garden Blogger Conference.
I am.
Will we have a book signing there, perhaps?
Yes, I believe so. I have to work that out with them still, of the logistics. But yes, I believe, yes. And I'll be bringing copies of Pith and Vigor along with me to share with the audience there. Be doing a talk as part of the conference.
Awesome. Save one for me.
I will.
Maybe we could do a selfie or something.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. So you'll be there.
Yes.
Will you be there, Adam?
No, I won't be this year.
Not this year.
Yeah, bit of a long way for me, but
it is.
I'd love to go, but yeah, just not going to happen. Can you give us a hint? What are you speaking about? Or maybe that's top secret. I'm not sure.
At that conference, that one's a bit of an anomaly. I'm headed this weekend to Seattle, and I will be speaking about. It's a talk I've prepared that kind of goes hand in hand with the book. It's different than the book, but sort of like a companion talk, and talking about how to kind of tease out your own personal style, and then begin the process of sort of building that up, which is a whole different sort of thing. But at least understanding the importance of getting your head around your own style and evolving it and figuring out, well, what is my own style, and defining it and starting to build it. So that's what the talk will be about in Seattle, and I'll be doing that at a couple other places this spring. But the Talk of the Garden Bloggers Conference is a different thing. That's more of a businessy kind of blogging kind of subject, and they've asked me to talk about branding. And I'm paired with somebody who's a branding expert, and so I'm kind of, we're a little bit of a yin and yang sort of thing, and she's talking, you know, kind of as is branding expert, and I'm kind of talking as like, this is how I've done kind of what she's going to say I should do. So that kind of thing. So.
Great story. Definitely. I'll have to definitely be in there. You're quite the inspiration.
Thank you.
I have to, not to go back, but let's go back. Bill Blevins was asking, and I was curious too, where does the name Pith and Vigor come from?
So, well, it's a funny story. It was Christmas time last year. I had just turned in the final stuff for the book, all the pictures and everything, and I was at my parents' house in Colorado and kind of padding around with these lists because I was working on Pith and Vigor, but I hadn't come up with a name yet. And I had in my mind that it should be like a single word, and sort of building off of, like, we did that with Leaf when I was working on that with Susan. Anyway, and so I literally had pages of lists that I was kind of carrying around in my pocket, and I would like write down anything that would come to mind, and I kept looking, and nothing was, you know, it. And so at some point I thought, well, maybe it should be something and something, and so I started kind of pairing up all these words, things that just sort of sounded interesting together. And one of the words that I had on the list was pith, and I did have also the word vigor, because I was thinking of each of them just as words that kind of, you know, were interesting words as names. And anyway, so I really liked the way it sounded, and so I started Googling it and researching it, and that was when it got really interesting, because for me they were just two words that I put together, and I kind of liked the way they sounded. And they, you know, had these sort of, you know, pith is the central stem of a plant, and it's sort of the spine and kind of the life-giving sort of thing, and vigor is sort of the life, and so I thought these words were really great. But when I researched it, I found that entomologists, the people who study the origins of words, there's apparently the phrase pith and vigor used to be a phrase that was used kind of fairly commonly in the late 17 and early 1800s. And people don't obviously use it anymore, but they think there's a theory that it was sort of the beginnings of the phrase that we say now is piss and vinegar. And I just love that. And so there's these various arguments kind of in these sort of entomology groups that say, you know, well, they think it's this or that, and I, you know, there was this phrase that people used to use, but they used it, the way it was used was to sort of talk about something that, the idea was that if something had been pithed, that means that its sort of spine had been ripped out, but then, so people would say there's this term pith, but then if pith and vigor sort of implied that something still had vigor even though its spine had been ripped out. And so it was meant to be sort of this, like, you know, succeeding at all odds, or like you can't be put down, or, you know, that kind of, like, you know, yeah.
Well, there's the word.
Full of life kind of thing. And I don't know, there was something very appealing about all of that. So it was very happenstance, and kind of worked my way in backwards. If I don't think I could have come up with it if I went looking for it, but there it was. So
that's cool.
yeah, I love the history of it. Once I found the history of these two random words I put together, I was like, this is just perfect.
You have a great name with a good story. So
say that again. Sorry.
You have a great name with a good story. So.
Yeah, I backed into that story, but it did work out.
Now you are just buried in snow right now, so you were telling me that your lawn chairs are buried and everything's just white. What? I'm just wondering if you would want to share a little bit about what does your garden look like when it's not under multiple feet of snow.
I have a big garden. Our house is outside of Boston, about not an hour, maybe 50 minutes, about 25 miles or so to the west of Boston, and we sit on a hill, and we have about 6 acres, just a little bit shy of 6 acres. Most of that, or at least half of it, is wooded, but I would say we've sort of started to cultivate somewhere, definitely 2 acres, maybe a little bit more than 2 acres, and so I have a big vegetable garden. We had to take down a ton of pine trees, very tall pine trees, in order to create any garden. Basically, they were literally right up on the house. The house was kind of moldy and in 100% shade all the time, with lots of acidic soil and pine needles everywhere, which is still the case, but we get some sun here and there because we cleared a few acres of everything but some of the hardwoods. And so now, we plant a lot of trees. And we've put in a small orchard and a big vegetable garden. We have a barn and a chicken coop. And I just finished a stone patio last fall, and a pergola to go over it. It still needs to be painted this spring and finished. But I love grasses. I don't know what it is. I'm obsessed with grasses. So I have big perennial, kind of very organic beds that sort of cut into this big grassy area to create some flow and shape that are very much filled with shrubs and grasses, big grasses, even things like giant miscanthus, which is obnoxious at this point. It's so huge and hard to control. But I like it.
Did you have a favorite vegetable last year?
I have a few favorite vegetables that I like to grow, but I have to admit, my garden last year, I have been winning and losing, depending on the year, a running battle with a woodchuck. And last year, I thoroughly got my butt kicked by him. I thought I had him, and that's, I think, right when, things are not right. I don't know who I thought was eating everything, but it was him. We've built fences. We've done all kinds of things. I nearly burnt my barn down trying to get rid of him one day. Just bad news. Anyway, he annihilated my garden, but which is, at this point, I don't know. Maybe I should just plant tomatoes and peppers and strawberries because he doesn't seem to eat those and just call it. But plant those on the outside and put the good stuff in the middle, right? I don't know.
Decoy.
He's brutal. But I tried a couple years ago, and I had really good success with them, and I'm just so excited to try them again. One is wasabi arugula, which is just, I love horseradish. I'm kind of obsessed. In fact, we're doing a horseradish story in the next issue of Pith Vigor. But this arugula is so good. It tastes just like horseradish, and adding that to a salad, it's just delicious. So wasabi arugula is one of my favorite leafy things to grow. And then I also grew ground cherries. Have you ever grown those? They're like they're in the same family as tomatoes. They're a nightshade. Physalis, I think, was there. Physalis something. Anyway, you probably see them at like fancy grocery stores. There are restaurants, maybe on desserts. They have like the little papery skin that sort of opens up, and then there's like an orange ball of kind of like a cherry tomato, it looks like. Like imagine a cherry tomato, but it has like a tomatillo skin, but smaller and orange. And they're sweet. And they're called ground cherries.
Ground cherries.
And I love them. They were like easy to grow, kind of like a tomatillo. I don't know if everybody's had tomatillo success, but I can't get rid of them at this point. they're so easy to grow. But it was kind of like that, easy to grow. Same sort of family or related, and they were sweet. They're like dessert-ish, like fruit, and I love them. I like to kind of grow different stuff, so stuff I can't find at the grocery store or the farmer's market. So those were
good. I might have to try some of those.
Yeah.
I've heard of them, but I haven't tried them yet.
I just Googled them. They do kind of look like the tomatillo. Now I'm in zone 5B, and my year last year wasn't so good with the tomatillo because we just didn't get hot enough, right? Do these kind of have the same growing habit? Like, do they need that intense heat?
Yeah, I think they do.
Okay.
But
start them early in the greenhouse or something, right?
Yeah. Although I think they are hardier than, they're a little less in need of that than, say, some tomatoes and tomatillos, because I think they actually grow. The first time I had them was in Europe, and I was in Italy once, and they were serving them, and they told me they collected them wild, which I thought was, this is northern Italy, so it's not that hot there. I mean, maybe.
Yeah, you're right.
But apparently they're wild there. That's what they said.
Awesome. I put them on my list for this year. I'll find them.
Yeah. I forget who I got seeds from. Wasabi arugula, I think, is botanical interest, but I'm not sure. I forget who I got.
Really good.
They're around.
We'll put those down as your two vegetable recommendations for 2018. So are you going to have time to do any gardening? It sounds like you're busy. You've got lots of conferences you're going to and book signings and tours and this or that.
I am, but I think so. At this point, I was at New England Grows last week, and one of the nursery owners told me that we'll see the ground in 4 weeks, and I can't say I believe him for 1 second. It is so snowy out there. So I'm having a hard time imagining a garden at the moment, but I know we're going to get there soon. It's just crazy to imagine. But, yeah, by the time that snow goes away, I won't be ready.
What's been so fun? Oh, go ahead, Bren.
What do you think your next adventure in the garden will be? Do you have any goals that you'd like to try growing or adding on? Maybe raised beds for to keep the critters out or something?
Yeah, I have raised beds. It's not helping, but what am I trying? I have an obsession with just willows in general. I kind of love them. And when I was a kid, we had a willow that I sort of family famously threw myself in front of when I was 5 because my dad was going to get rid of it, and I saved it, But this big weeping willow, and it's still one of my favorite trees ever. It was so beautiful, and I want one in my garden, and I planted one a couple years ago, and it did not make it. So I am now determined to not only plant another one, but also kind of mess around with willows, and I'm curious to make some hedging with them and weave them and maybe make an arch or an igloo or something cool with them. And I love that whole idea that you can literally stick the whip in the ground and it'll kind of go and grow. That's cool.
Yeah. That's really cool. Those are fun.
Yeah.
Watch out, you might have willows everywhere.
I know. Well, and we have septic systems here. We're on a well and everything, not city, so we have to be very careful. So, yeah.
Right. I'm sure your dad would tell you to plant it way out because they can be dangerous to your, any trenching you have there.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful trees.
Yes, they are. I love them.
Rochelle, it's been so fun to have you on. I was wondering one more time, what would be the best place for people to find you?
Probably the Pith Vigor website. The blog that I had for a very long time, Studio G blog, recently moved it over to be part of the Pith Vigor website. So everything is kind of in one spot now. But if you wanted to reach me, there's contact details there. That's really the main place.
Right. Well, thanks so much for taking your time out to join us. Bren, where should people go to follow Garden Chatter?
Well, if you're watching the presentation tonight on Google, I hope you will click on Adam or me or Rochelle and follow us, and we can continue the conversation there. You can also follow the hashtag on Twitter at Garden Chatter. And I like what Rochelle shares on there at Pith and Vigor, Vigor on Twitter. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll wrap with that. Thank you.